Okay, welcome back to Business Owners Speak. Today, along with a beautiful looking dog in the background, I have with us Rob Levy from Bagelworks Restaurant and Deli. Rob, how are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I am great. We appreciate you being here. Look forward to hearing more about you and the business. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business.
Let's start with the business. Was formed in 1991, I believe. It's a single store. We're located on Glade, just by the turnpike. We've got about 90 seats plus a counter, and we're open for breakfast and lunch. We're a little bit of an institution down here in West Boca. Lots of interesting customers come and go. We see lots of them, as I'm sure you can imagine. Half my business is takeout, so items by the pound, and obviously bagels, which we make 3 or 4 times a day straight from the flour. And then the other portion of the business is dine-in, counter, waitress service, as well as online and catering. And that's been going, as I said, for just over 30 years. It's an interesting business, get to meet lots of different people from all sorts of places. And then prior to that, I moved here from London in 2009, where I owned with my brother just over 30 retail men's clothing stores, similar to American Eagle. I was involved in all the traveling, merchandising, buying, and my brother handled the legal lease side running of the stores. We sold that probably in 2006. I consulted for various retailers, including Marks and Spencer's, and had an opportunity to come here totally unrelated to the clothing business, helping relaunch the New York Cosmos, which is, as you know, was an iconic soccer team. Got involved in that, going backwards and forwards to New York. Didn't think that was going to survive. Got involved in personal training, was asked to get involved in a restaurant called Bagelworks, which I came to as a kid and had French toast. My wife got involved in interior design. And then I suppose one thing led to another. 2010, I became equal partner with the original owner. And in 2013, he departed. So it was just me. The New York Cosmos, I walked away from. I still continue regularly to personal train. So between that and now the restaurant, I've gone from clothing, the schmutter business, to soccer, back to personal training and owning a deli.
It's always an interesting journey, isn't it? You couldn't have mapped that out when you started, I'm sure.
No way. No chance.
All right. And so you've been sole owner since 13, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. And, restaurants and the restaurant world is an interesting industry, and you focusing on the morning lunch period kind of separates you a little bit from some of the underbelly of the restaurant industry. And so I'm curious, when you jumped in, even as partner, what were the original thoughts of the industry and the business itself?
That's a good question. I mean, when I jumped in, I had absolutely no understanding about the restaurant business whatsoever. I relied on my previous partner. We opened a store in Aventura in 2010-11, and I was very green. That failed. We closed that down. I learned lots and lots of lessons by that failure. And I'm a big believer in the word, you really can't succeed until you learn what it is to fail. Lost money, demoralizing, taught me lots of things. I was fortunate we still had the Boca Raton store. I put more time and effort into that and realized that it's tough to have a partner. You have to have accountability, clearly. And the restaurant business is not glamorous. Just because you have people coming in the restaurant day in, day out doesn't necessarily mean that it makes money. And it woke me up. And I think anyone who runs a restaurant, it's a very challenging business. You've got it on both sides, whether it's the food cost, the labor, the customers, and there are, for every one success, 10 failures. And I've been there and experienced it.
Yeah, it's an industry that is somewhat subjective, right? Because food is somewhat subjective to people. So you could serve the exact same thing to 2 people sitting next to each other, and one's going to love it and one's going to hate it. How do you deal with that mentally, right? And even with your team, to stay positive and understand that we're just not going to please everyone, unfortunately.
I think it helps that the business has been there, over 30 years.
Yeah.
And we know we have a tough crowd. We know we have a good product, and we know that it's impossible to please everybody. And I think since the advent of social media and Yelp and Google, you're going to get some reviews, hopefully majority will be positive. I reply to, I'd probably say 99.9% of them. Some can be personal, and I've learned over the years not to take it personally. If we make an error, which we will, and we do, we have 400 to 500 customers a day, we'll try and make it right. And we'll try and do it respectfully, and we hope that the client in return is respectfully, but doesn't always work that way. And I try to teach my staff, as does my general manager, just to be cool. The customer is king. However, there is a line, and we expect our customers to be respectful. And it can get a little interesting, as you would expect with so many people coming in, day out. But it is a people's business, and it doesn't really matter what you sell, whether you sell tennis balls, T-shirts, or bagels and tuna. We know we're never going to get it 100% right. And a lot of my staff have been with me 5, 10, 12, 15 years. My baker's been with me 30 years.
Wow.
So they kind of know the shtick. They know the deal.
Yeah.
And, people are human. We make mistakes. But I think we know by and by what we're doing. We make 500,000 bagels a year. So we must have a decent bagel. Otherwise, we wouldn't make so many. There are way better restaurateurs out there than me. There are way better bagel stores that may have 4, 10, 20 locations. But we just try and focus on, what we're doing. We know we can always improve. You're only as good as your weakest link. I'm a great schmoozer. Everybody loves, I come from London. And if ever there's an issue and I go to the table, it ends up invariably, you're from London. Do you know? Did you see the Queen? And I can kind of diffuse the situation, but it's challenging.
The amount of opportunity your team has in those 400 and 500 interactions in a day, and 98% of them can be positive. That's a lot for them, right? Because every interaction is an opportunity to go well or to not go well. What does some of your training look like with your team to but try to ensure that as many of those are positive interactions as possible?
I think we're fortunate most of the staff have been there since the store opened.
Okay.
And they've had what I call, on the job training, thrown in at the deep end. And I like to be there as often as I can, just to hover over them. I mean, if you come into the store today, for example, you would see me come from the dish machine, bringing out glasses and cups. And if I need to wipe the tables down, I will. And it starts from the top. We're not one of those formal type businesses that every Monday for 2 hours we'll have staff training. And that's not how we're really on the job. But there are regular meetings between my general manager and the staff, where we go over certain items. And if we introduce a new item, there'll be pictures that we'll taste the food. We've just introduced a new uniform, so that had to be explained to the staff. But I think me being there makes a big difference, because I'm not out playing tennis 5 or 6 hours a day and jetting off to all these exotic places. You can come in and you'll see me there, clean a table. And unfortunately, as much as I prefer not to clean a table, whilst I am an owner operator, I think it's just something I have to do until such time as I don't need to do it. I think when you have 5, 6, 7 stores, or the business is franchised, it's easier to take a step back. But with a one-man store, even with a general manager, and I have a staff of about 28 people, I think it's important that they see the boss slap things around and wipe tables down. I think that's the best training they've got.
Yeah, and following the lead, right? And especially with the schmoozing. And although not everybody has that ability, the attitude, right, can be followed. And that's such a huge part of that industry. And you mentioned you being involved, and it makes me think of margin, and which then makes me think of food costs, and how everything has changed a lot over the past 4 to 5 years. I'm curious, of course, I have to ask the COVID question, kind of how you made it through and how you pivoted and changed your business and did what you needed to do to get back to today?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that pandemic was an exceptional period of time for all in the restaurant business or anyone in the retail business. And I think we're fortunate that being in Florida, we were allowed to open to a lesser or greater degree. And for us, we had never done Uber or curbside or anything like that. It was always you come into the restaurant. So we had to pivot very fast. And we had a staff that was very flexible. They needed to work. It's their livelihood. They couldn't afford just to sit at home. You don't work, you don't get paid. That's the nature of the business. We're not an accounting company or a lawyer. You come to work, you get paid, you do a job. So we operated, really, we shut the doors, except for phone calls, online and third party. And it saved our business. And we I think, responded very quickly. It was a real steep learning curve. How do you repackage something? Normally it's on a plate with a knife and fork. Now it's got to be paper or plastic. How do we get it to the customer's car? Do we wear gloves? Do we have to wear a mask? And the resistance to that and all the politics, and customers wanted us to do a certain way. And it was really challenging. But, we had to cut our staff. We did okay. We learned lots. And it's interesting that since then, it was only recently have we stopped what I call true curbside. And for us, it's an extra revenue center, but an extra overhead. Now there's no need for the food to be brought to people's cars unless they physically can't. But during COVID, it was everything. Takeout, Uber. At one time, I think we had maybe 3 or 4 of the services. Now we only have our own online service and Uber, but it's a much smaller percent of the business. And it's taken, a good couple of years for people to get out of their car and actually come into the store and pick up your food. But customers' perceptions have changed. I think people's patience is less than it was. I think the expectation is greater. Most customers understand that food cost and labor cost has gone up exponentially. And I try to take our menu and any price increases we've done, and I've tried not to be greedy, and we have been challenged on that as to why is this price, and the same questions comes back. We haven't reduced our portion size, we haven't changed any vendors, my tuna, my flour, everything's the same, but things have gone up, and I've tried to do it carefully. Just walk into Publix and see how much bananas are, or it's challenging, it's crazy.
Did you say 500,000 bagels?
Mm.
And but you also said your baker's been there for.
So my baker's been with me since the day the restaurant opened, which is 1991. He's my main baker. I have a second baker who, what I call ducks and dives. And now we probably have 3 or 4 of the staff who are able to move in to assist, certainly during very busy times. So that Christmas week, Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, we might have 2-3 people proofing, baking, bringing them in out of the oven, making them into bagel chips. It's a very, very labor-intense process. Yeah. Today is Tuesday. We probably did 3 bakes in the oven. So that means at any time, chances are that bagel is not very old. And at the end of the day, that bagel is not kept to the next day. There's no preservatives. Right. We make it into bagel chips or we give it to the staff. So there is unfortunately some element of wastage there. But we believe that when you come in, that bagel is made that day. All our salads are made in-house. Our tuna, I trademarked the name Legendary Tuna because it's just such a big part of my business. It's so good. It's like made with so much love. So we're known for our tuna. We're known for our bagels. We're probably known for, it's a bit of a scene. It can get, a little bit hairy. I tell people, come in, sit at the counter and just soak in the whole atmosphere because it's an experience.
That's what it should be. So then the obvious question, Rob, is are we thinking about additional locations, or are you right there and you're going to make that as good as you can make it for the future?
I think the answer to that, I was very near in opening on 2 occasions. I had letters of intent signed and both collapsed for various reasons, both through no fault of my own. And if I'm going to open additional stores, I think there'll be more of an express type format. I think what we have in West Boca is quite unique. I'm not sure it's so easy to take 3,700 square feet and literally replicate it. I think it needs to be done on a much smaller express scale, not cutting any food quality, maybe reducing the menu, but certainly reducing the table size. But the challenge at the moment, certainly in the last 2 years since Florida's exploded, is finding A, the right location, B, that is workable on the rent, and C, the whole build cost and the time taken to do this. And I'm kind of nervous, to be honest with you. I just haven't found that right formally yet. And I know there are plenty of businesses that have expanded, but it's going to be my money. And I've already got burnt once, and that cost me a lot of money. And, you know, there's good and bad with that. You come apprehensive, less risk-taking, and it's easy to rest on your laurels. But again, if the right place and the right opportunity came along, I do think that there is an opportunity to expand Bagelworks, without doubt, whether it's in the Palm Beach area, whether it's in West, but further west. I think people love bagels, and there is lots of competition. I accept that. But I think there's opportunities there. Just got to be right. I don't want to work for the landlord. I want to make money for me and my staff.
And so, as we close, how about some advice you'd give for either a business owner just starting out or someone who's working a regular job but has an idea and wants to take that leap? Any words of wisdom?
I think that learning how to fail is equally as important as learning how to succeed. I think when you fail, it hardens you. It opens your eyes big time. That's the first advice. It's okay to fail. The second thing is take advice, listen to people. There are plenty of smart people out there, but in the end, sometimes too much advice it can blind you. You know, go with your gut. Be smart, write everything down, have a plan. Even with the best laid plans, it's not a straight line. You know, it's a rocky pathway. Don't be greedy. Be fair to your fellow employees and staff, because it's a two-way street. And be patient. And it doesn't happen overnight. That get rich quick doesn't have any interest in me. I don't believe in it. I think you've got to put the work in, put the time in.
All very sage advice. Rob Levy, really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you.
Can't wait to get down there and try it. I've never been, so
pleasure.
I'm going to sit at the counter and take in the experience at Bagelworks Restaurant and Deli. Rob, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.